And the lawyer asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" I speak these words in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen. Avoided any Samaritans lately? No? What do you mean there aren't any Samaritans in southern Kansas or Raytown or Leawood or Overland Park? They're all around us. We just make sure we don't see them. A Samaritan, one who is repugnant to the average Jews in Jesus' time. They were hated there was hatred and animosity between the Jews and the Samaritans. For centuries, the disciples, the Israelites, held the Samaritans to be idolaters and betrayers of the faith. About 25 years before Jesus even told this parable, a group of Samaritans entered the temple in Jerusalem and scattered human bones around, desecrating the temple. Since the Samaritans and the Israelites hated each other so much, it would not have been too much of a thought upon seeing the half-dead Israelite on the ground for the Samaritan to finish him off for good. You know the story back and forth. So I'm not going to repeat it this morning, but I'm sure many of you remember this story since you were old enough to begin memorizing biblical stories. Why not repeating the story? The issue that this story brings forth this morning is worth repeating again and again. And who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Have you read today's forward day by day? Anybody? If you haven't, I would suggest that you do. Although I'm saying it right now, so I mean, the lady who wrote it, she said, we want people to fall into neat categories so that we can mentally shortcomings on how we treat people. Here is the rub. There are no categories. We have to be brave enough to scrape off the labels and forgo the categories we have created to make us feel comfortable or righteous. She continues on. How should I treat this person, a female or a man? As a person of color? As a person without a home? A person who has drug problems? As a person who is dressed or speaks differently than I do? Why don't we treat a person like a person, the way we would want to be treated? And she concludes, the next time you come across a person in the supermarket who drops a box of cereal, a person who is clearly having one of these days, you might be very different from you, who might be very different from you, who might not say thank you. What would you ask yourself? Or would you simply help the person, your neighbor, and a child of God? My friends, from this pulpit for 15 and a half years, I will say to you again, it is not easy being a Christian. And if we want to be Christians, then we have to act like Christians. I hope you're getting the picture that as Christian people, we are to be called to the most unusual to help this place a better place to live. And we do this by beginning to respect the dignity of every human being. To treat people as if they were sitting right in your pews. This is what the Samaritan did. Regardless of who was lying halfway dead on the road, he took this robbed, beaten, clothes were taken, to a place not only where he would recover, but the gentleman said, and if there are extra expenses, I will pay for them. On Mondays, I'm a chaplain at St. Luke's South Hospital in Overland Park. I encounter many people with different backgrounds. I have a visitation list, and first says the guy's name, and then it says whether he's a male or female. That's helpful. And then it says religions. And they're always Roman Catholics. There's always a bunch of Lutherans, and every once in a while I come across an Episcopalian. Or a Jew, or a Muslim. But others are identified as not religious. And I knocked on the door of a non-religious patient. And the daughter of the patient immediately got up and said, "Are you going to save my father?" I said, "No." And I walked over to see the patient who was recovering and from surgery, and we had a wonderful conversation briefly. And when I said, "Well, I wish you well," he offered his hand, and I said, "Thank them," and I said, "God bless," and I left. But before I did, I talked to the daughter, and I said, "See, it wasn't too bad." The point I want to make to you, my friend, is that a lot of doors are closed, but we as Christians must open them. I know it isn't easy to just go up and start talking to someone you don't know, or help someone you don't know. I'm an introvert. It takes lots of energy for me to be speaking from you, although I've been doing it all my life. But it takes a lot of energy to do this. And my wife Susan will tell me that the minute I come home after being church, I have to take a nap. You may not know this, but most of our pastors or priests are introverts. We have to think first before we speak. We listen better than always talking all the time. But an extrovert will be blah, 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 blah. And most bishops are extroverts. Please don't tell Marty that, okay? Secret. My friends, what gives me strength to stand before you is what we do every Sunday morning. We receive the sacraments of blessed bread and wine, or the body and blood of Jesus Christ. We receive the strength from the sacrament so that we may be the example of Jesus' disciples, helping those in need, whether it be food, care, homelessness, transportation, or just simply take your phone and call somebody who is all by themselves. Some 2,000 years ago, the Samaritan is remembered by the fact that he carried his naturally born opponent. Today, being the second week of July, what will you contribute? What will you contribute, large or small, to make this a better place to live? This Good Samaritan simply asks us, who is your neighbor? Who is your neighbor? Who is your neighbor, my friend? Or as your parish mission states on the front of your bulletin, to be the hands and the feet of Christ to the world in need. It's an honor to be with you this morning. Have a great week. And thanks be to God. Amen.
Amen. Amen.